So today we're going to be learning about avoidance behavior to electric fences, poisons, or traps. So the definition of avoidance behavior is that it is a spread out pattern of avoiding or withdrawing from social interaction. It's also a defense mechanism by which an organism removes itself from unpleasant situations. Another definition could be an avoidance response is a behavior based on the concept that animals will avoid performing behaviors that result in an aversive outcome. This can involve learning through apparent conditioning when it is used as a training technique. It is a reaction to undesirable sensations or feedback that leads to avoiding the behavior that is followed by this unpleasant or fear-inducing stimulus. So, how does avoidance behavior apply to natural selection, physical and behavioral mechanisms, and communication overall with organisms? Well, let's start with... So, as far as natural selection goes, natural selection favors the natural or the innate behaviors, as well as learned abilities, and aids in the increase of survival and reproductive fitness of organisms. So, for physical mechanisms, you can start with the defense mechanisms such as playing dead, or moving away from anything that seems negative towards the organism. There are two types of avoidance. There's active avoidance, which means fleeing or running away from whatever is feared or presented as a stimulus. And then there's passive avoidance, which is just freezing or standing still, and the organism wouldn't have like a full-on reaction to it. Then there are behavioral mechanisms, and these are learned and innate behaviors. So you can look at food aversions, which end in sickness, and it teaches the animal to avoid the stimulus, which is the food, because of a negative outcome, which is being sick, like poisonous berries and eating like poisonous frogs or whatever. They know to like avoid it because they had their reaction of being sick. Then there's also learning how to avoid wires like on the electric fence and traps, because you don't want to get trapped inside of them and you don't want to be shocked. So if the animal is shocked, obviously it's going to be in pain. It's not going to want to deal with it again. So it will avoid the fence entirely and know not to try and go over it. Then there's avoiding human interaction, because if an animal will see a human or a hunter, per se, in the woods, and you point something at it, loud bang goes off with the gun, then the animal's going to go running, and it's not going to want to be around for that, and they'll know that it's meant to run and avoid that interaction. As for cars, there's an idea that you have to avoid them, because if, say, there's a pack of animals going across the road, one gets hit by a car and goes flying, the rest of them are not going to run across the road. They're going to try and avoid it and run the opposite direction, because, oh my god, one of our members got killed. And that wouldn't be good. Fleeing. Another type of behavioral mechanism would be feelings of disgust, which is like a mental behavior, and it's directed towards the idea of poison. So say there are like moldy strawberries, and an animal goes to eat it, and then it goes back to the food aversion, which is you learn to associate that food or object with an illness or your response to it. Then if the animal is disgusted by whatever it is, then they will avoid that as well. So as far as electric fences go, the animal is going to want to avoid it because of the pain that is felt. So it's a negative response to the animal, so they will not go near it. They will tell others, and they will communicate with the others in their group to, say in the fencing or outside of the fencing, don't go near it because you will be in pain. As for traps, say squirrels, raccoons, if they're with others of their kind, they're gonna avoid it. If they see one of the members get stuck in there, they'll know the reaction of the trap and what will happen to them. Then there's the poison berries idea, where they won't eat the berries. So behavior is communicated to other members of a group by many different means. They can make noise, like howling, for example, for the wolf. They can be loud, showing, like, just as a warning. They can also, animals can also release smell or pheromones to each other, so they can send off warning signals by the scent they're giving off. There's also the idea that some animals use physical actions such as baring teeth and having extreme body movements. For example, the kangaroo thumps their leg aggressively if there's any type of danger to, like, warn others. There's also the idea that groups will witness the negative outcome of other members, such as the traps are becoming ill and dying from poison, so they know not to go and eat the same thing that their buddy just ate. And then the whole idea that groups will listen to, like, the alpha, so whatever the alpha is suggesting, then that's what happens, so they won't go around disobeying the main ideas of the alpha. And as one of the final ideas, there's the example of avoidance behavior, which is the experiment by Solomon and Wynn, and that's when the dog received an electric shock from through the floor on one side of a tall wall. In order to avoid the shock, the dog had to jump over the barrier, and then the dog wouldn't be shocked anymore. So it became a learned behavior to avoid the electric shock from the floor, and even when the dog didn't have to jump over the barrier, it still did to avoid being shocked in general. So, yeah, that's it.